not taking no for an answer, always trying to find a way, is what has been part of my journey.
Welcome to Speaking of Business, conversations with Canadian innovators, entrepreneurs, and business leaders. I'm Goldy Hyder, President and CEO of the Business Council of Canada. When Jennifer Wong was an economics student at the University of British Columbia, she walked into an Aritzia store with her resume. The company at that time was only 3 years old and boasted 2 locations. She landed a part-time job that led to other Aritzia jobs, and 3 decades later, she became the company's CEO. Over that time, Aritzia grew with Jennifer. It has 117 stores across North America and growing, in addition to a huge e-commerce platform which is available around the world. What an incredible journey. I am so delighted to be able to sit down with Jennifer to find out more. Welcome to the podcast, Jennifer.
Thank you, Goldy. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, look, let's start with what I just said. I mean, you have had a really interesting personal career journey. You started off at Aritzia as a part-time sales associate 36 years ago, and you progressively rose through the ranks. You took on new roles, and voila, you become CEO. You have to tell me, is this what you were thinking 36 years ago when you started?
I applied to Aritzia my first year of university. I ended up studying economics. And Aritzia, even back then in 1987, was a very aspirational store. I had shopped there as a customer and loved the clothes. I've always loved clothes and fashion. And I thought as a part-time job on evenings and weekends while I was going to school, I'd love to work there. So I applied at, I think it was store number 1 that I applied to. This is in Vancouver at Oak Ridge Shopping Center, right around the corner from where I lived. I handed in my resume. I was asked a few questions, and I have shared this publicly. It was actually the founder and former CEO who interviewed me. He asked me a few questions about some items on my resume, and then he handed it back to me and said, well, we're not looking for anybody right now. So he let me down gently. And I don't know what it was that got into me, but I think this was indicative of what drives me is I wasn't going to take that. And I knew that Aritzia had just opened a store number 3 on Robson Street. So I literally got into my car that same day, drove down to Robson Street, applied, and the manager there hired me. Not on the spot, but she called me back 2 days later and hired me. And it was in November. I think they were looking for holiday help, and they've never let me go since. So fast forward to, it's actually my 30th.
Actually, before you go there, let me ask, when did you first see the founder after you already started in this store? Did he say, hey, what are you doing here?
I don't think he remembered taking my resume, or so far, even after 36 years, he doesn't recall that. So he came into the store. I was working there one evening, and he came into the store. I think I was, if you really want to know the story, I think I was leaning over the cash desk reading the gift certificate display on the wall, because it was my first couple of shifts. I was just acclimatizing to what was going on. I was leaning to look at the gift certificate display, because back then they were paper gift certificates. The first thing he said to me is, what are you doing holding up the cash desk? Which was his way of saying, stand tall and greet the customers. So started learning right then and there from the founder.
Little did he know what was in his future when fast forward.
Well, I've learned a lot from him. And I'm very, very grateful.
How did you do it? Tell us, the journey itself. I mean, you think about the fact that you're in the same place for 36 years. That's not something one would expect would happen today.
Really, I thought I would get a grown-up job when I graduated from university and go into banking and finance, of all things. That never happened. What I found at Aritzia was, because I think it's in my nature to like to learn new things and figure things out and try to get good at whatever it is that might be presented to me as a challenge, that's what's really driven me at Aritzia. And that's what's allowed me to be successful at Aritzia. I'm someone in leadership who has not been there, done that, so to speak. I actually think that gives one an advantage, because you don't approach something with already sort of preconceived
a bias.
You're looking at something fresh with fresh eyes and wanting to figure it out. You're asking questions, and I really have a mindset that I like to seek to understand, and I think that's been an important aspect in my ability to be successful.
Well, certainly consistent with a lot of our other podcasts and with our leaders is that DNA, that trait of curiosity. It appears that you've had a lot of that. But another thing that we talk a lot about is just the journey it doesn't seem to be a straight line. I don't think you walked in, you became an associate, and, fast forward to 2022, you became CEO. What was some of the adversity that you faced, maybe even failures that you faced, and how important were those as part of your leadership journey?
I've only reflected on it more recently when I've been asked about how I started at Aritzia. And I suppose the very, very first one was getting turned down that very first day and realizing that not just to accept that. And if there's a
Not going to take no for an answer.
No, well, yeah, that's the headline. Don't take no for an answer. And I will say not taking no for an answer, always trying to find a way is what has been part of my journey. So as COO, where my job is about figuring things out and getting across the finish line, coming up with a solution, these are the types of things that I think are innate in me and that I've been able to hone over the years. And so my journey has really been about figuring things out, learning new things, overcoming problems. So when things are a challenge, and also when you make mistakes, when you make the odd mistake, or when something doesn't go as successfully as you had thought, you learn from that and then you get better from that.
What is it that has kept you there?
I have been asked that before. When I get asked that by candidates who are interviewing for a job, I say there's three things. The first one are people. I love the people that I work with. I work with a team of people who are exceptionally smart, really, really care, passionate about what they do, and nice at the same time. And I love working with people who challenge me. I can challenge them. They really keep the bar high. It's very intellectually stimulating coming into work every single day. The second thing for me anyways is I've never had to go anywhere else for career opportunity. I've been in a company that has been growing and consistently growing essentially since day one, haven't had to go anywhere else for opportunity. And as long as I worked hard, produced results, was very fortunate to have different opportunities presented to me. And then the last thing is I'm very proud of our success. And it can be very powerful being associated with something that is successful and knowing when looking at service providers or considering service providers or different suppliers, and they really want to do business with you because they recognize that you're a successful brand, a company that they want to do business with. You feel really great and proud to be part of that company.
What do your customers tell you about the Aritzia brand? What makes it the success that it is?
It starts for sure with our product and offering a product assortment that resonates with our customer, a customer that is varied in age, diverse in backgrounds. We have a customer that spans 3 generations, essentially, Generation X, Millennials, Generation Z. And we're very proud of being able to provide that offering, along with, exceptional client experience and service. If you walk into our stores, we're very personalized and like to be higher touch in terms of our in-store experience. We'd like to say we have the most aspirational shopping environments if it's the physical store. We're very proud of the digital representation of that with our online store. And these are all things that kind of make up our brand. We celebrate our 40-year anniversary this coming year.
Congratulations.
And so thank you. We're very proud of having been able to offer that consistently to a customer that's been growing with us over the years.
Now, speaking of growing, you're really overseen many of the new initiatives to expand Aritzia into the U.S. and also the launch of the e-commerce business. Tell us a little bit more about what it's like to enter both the American market, but also really go big on the e-commerce side.
In Canada, we grew organically through our store openings. That started in 1984. We didn't introduce online until 2012. Our growth strategy in the U.S. is a little bit different. It's synergistically growing with both channels. So it's opening key flagship stores in AAA real estate that really showcases our brand and propels our brand, all the while driving sales, as well as then promoting our online business. So with 49 stores in Canada and 68 stores in the U.S., I've had lots of questions on, well, is it 10 times the stores in the U.S. or 10 to 15 times? Because that is sort of the multiple in terms of population and size. I would say no, it's not that high of a multiple. Instead, we'll open key stores We probably see about 125 to 150 stores in the US, and I like to think the rest could be filled in with digital. And so that's a little bit different than how we grew in Canada. The advent of digital has made the environment different.
Do you stop in the US or you have bigger ambitions than that?
We have ambitions beyond that, which is to take everyday luxury, which is our brand proposition, everyday luxury around the world. We want to own everyday luxury globally.
Now, I've had the distinct pleasure of visiting your facility, at least in Vancouver. I know it's expanding, and I've had a chance to tour a little bit of it. What I noticed, of course, is that the vast majority of people in your workforce, in your employee base, are women. I think the number is as high as 85%, and it includes 73% women on your senior leadership, and maybe those numbers are even getting higher since I last saw you. This is very much an exception in corporate Canada at the moment. We're all working on it, that's for sure, but you're an anomaly in terms of having it that high. How did you do it?
Well, we are women's fashion, so it starts with, our customer is primarily women. That's not to say it's just women, but it's primarily women.
I'm coming to that part. Okay. I gave you a heads up on that.
Right. So, with our front lines at the retail stores, there's a lot of women in our stores that are passionate about our product and really great ambassadors for our product. We have a platform and a saying, women to the power of women. And it is about uplifting and supporting women all through our supply chain. And in fact, if you go up the supply chain, I think it's 67%. It's primarily women even in our supply chain that are making our clothes. So it goes much further than just even, the four walls of our business. And we're very proud of that. Truthfully, it's happened organically. We are a high-performing culture, and it just so happens that the people who are attracted to our value proposition and passionate about our product, as well as those who are successful within the company, they happen to be women.
And like you, I understand sort of the retention of your workforce is quite high, and many of them have been there over 10 years. Clearly, that speaks a lot to a corporate culture that has been created at Aritzia. How do you go about retaining your staff in what is now, a very competitive market for labor? There's all the issues around sort of, the return to the office or return to the store and so forth. What are you doing to hang on to the talent?
15% of our current employee population have been with the company for 10 years or more. And so it's a couple of things. We have a value. One of our values is loyalty. It's a two-way street. We value loyalty from our clients as well as our own people, and it's reciprocal. We reward the loyalty in that. It's a relationship. It's a mutual commitment. Certainly, being a high-performing culture, retaining the top talent is very important to us. So there's all different kinds of things that I think speak to that, including financial reward, opportunity. I have benefited from the opportunity. We'd like to think that people can have full careers at Aritzia, so they don't need to go anywhere else. And being a growing company, there's lots of opportunity. In fact, sometimes I've even said there's more opportunity and more initiatives that we'd like to undertake than we even have people that can do that. So I think there's no shortage of that. And then the third thing that we offer is an education. I have spent my whole career at Aritzia, save for the little stint I did at Marvelous Muffins beforehand. But my whole career, I've learned something. And that's really important to me. And I think if you get folks that align with your culture, these are things that resonate with them and keep them there.
Is there somebody in Aritzia that joined as an associate that's going to go on to be CEO one day like you did? I mean, you're doing a lot of nurturing of the next generation of your leaders. Is it your hope that that kind of leadership is coming from within your company as opposed to hiring from outside when the time comes?
I absolutely hope so, and I absolutely believe we've got lots of candidates that have the drive and the ability to do that. As a matter of fact, I was doing a campaign for International Women's Day last year, and she was a store manager. She's originally from Calgary. She spent some time in Florida, and then she has now since moved back to Canada. But she said, and I believe she wrote this in something to her store manager, that she wants my job. I've had a few people say that they want my job, and I just love that.
Couldn't agree with you more. That's a great story. One of the things that, we've had to touch on, we do want to put it in the rearview mirror, but it had impact on all of us, and that was just the pandemic and getting through COVID. But I wonder if we could take some lessons from COVID itself, particularly the impact that it had on the retail industry, which took a huge hit. And you managed to not only weather the storm, but I understand you did it without laying off any staff. How did you manage to do that when the stores were closed and no sales were happening?
Oh, yeah, that was a very tough time. We did not lay off or furlough a single employee as
I guess that's your loyalty value in practice,
There's
isn't it?
Absolute loyalty there. And the reciprocal part is that when the stores did reopen, we had people ready to go, hit the ground running. We didn't have to rehire and train up. And so in the long run, that was one of the things that we considered. We think that this will benefit us in the long run if we could just hold on. And we were counting, we're doing projections on how long we could keep this up, of course. But we pivoted, we essentially threw the playbook out the window and pivoted. And so with our online business, we shifted our workforce to help support that business and maximize the success of the online business. So a lot of the retail folks that were traditionally in the stores, we moved them to forms of digital selling. So they went on their digital selling app and reached out to their client books. And we moved them into our concierge. Some of them worked in the distribution center to fulfill e-commerce orders. We reallocated the workforce, and they were all very happy to do it because they're all very happy to still have work. And it was very uniting, even though some of them would say, okay, I don't want to do that again, that I'm not interested in working in the distribution center. They did feel that they were part of a bigger common goal and cause, which was to keep Aritzia going. And so it's that energy and drive of our people. That's another thing that I love about Aritzia is we have a lot of heart.
One of the things that we learned about, leaders during COVID is what makes them leaders in a crisis. What is it that allows them to get through not just turbulent times, but a time that we hadn't seen in 100 years. You weren't trained probably on how to handle this pandemic and the impact it had on your business. As you reflect back on that and your own experience with that, what did you learn about yourself and what did you learn about leadership during a crisis?
The importance of teamwork. Teamwork is one of our 6 values. The power of teamwork really came through during the pandemic, and that was evidence in just the entire company rallying and uniting around our e-commerce business and pivoting to the e-commerce business that I mentioned earlier, but also just our leadership team where you're fighting to keep the business going as well as doing right by your people. So there was an additional learning in terms of the balance between heart and mind and how to make the most of both of those aspects of running a business. It's some of the longest days that we've ever worked, 15-hour days, 16-hour days. And this is, starting early in the pandemic when you don't know what's going on. You're told to stay in your house. You're scared you might get it. We're still coming in and working through all of the different things that are coming up operationally, trying to monitor what's going on externally, and you bond over that. It's like you've gone through something that will bond you for life. And I really do value the teamwork. And as a leader now and my CEO, so that was when I was COO and now as CEO, really, really value my leadership team and knowing that no one person is a hero and certainly not me. And you do need a really strong team of people who gel with you and share that common vision of yours to get through it.
One of the consequences of COVID, of course, is that the shopping centers took a huge hit, retail took a huge hit, and there was actually a question as to whether people just got comfortable shopping online only and will they ever return to the malls. Now, we know from our own members who do own malls that not only has retail returned, but in many ways it's positioned to grow as we grow. Does that surprise you?
What's interesting is leading up to COVID, there was a lot of talk in the media about retail somewhat succumbing to online and e-commerce.
Yeah, that was on its last legs, really. Malls were going to shut down.
Yeah. And what happened when things opened up is I think there was pent-up demand. People wanted to get out. Experiences are important to people. So there was a shift. So there was a positive shift for in-store experiences and shopping in real life that we benefited from. Our retail really did grow extraordinarily, and we're truly an omni business. So we're quite pleased with the fact that we've been positioned well, both with an online business that we can say is legit. We were essentially a pure play during the pandemic when everything was closed. And now coming out of the pandemic, we're truly omni-channel and we're quite balanced between the two channels. So we're able to capitalize on the retail growth and also continue to grow our online business.
And so you think where we are now is there's no need to be concerned that, in-store shopping is going to decline just over time as online shopping becomes even more sophisticated and faster, and the use of AI and all of that?
There's no indicators now that that's happening. I think it's a case of the strong will get stronger and the weak may get weaker. So it might kind of separate that. I think it's really about how effectively a company like ours will integrate the two and truly be an omni business and truly be able to cater to the client wherever, whenever she chooses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing about Canada, of course, is we're located next to this country called the United States of America, the economic superpower of the world. And for many of Canadian businesses, growth comes in the United States. And that is not unique to you because, as you've mentioned, you're growing in the United States. You've got stores there since, I think, about 2007. And you've got this ambition plan, as you said, get to 120, 125 stores in the U.S. I just want to talk about the decision to go into the U.S. How challenging was it to break into that market? Because it's a huge market. And for all the commonalities between Canadian Americans, they're different.
Yes. I remember when we were first planning to enter the U.S. in 2006, 2007 timeframe, and we had a private equity company at the time, and they were great partners, and they would ask us good questions to make sure that we were really thinking about the business. There was probably some concern about being successful in the U.S. Up until that time, I don't think one Canadian retailer, other than maybe Aldo Shoes, was successful going into the U.S. A lot of Canadian retailers retreated back. And so they asked us the same, what is it that makes you think you will be successful? And we did enter with 2 stores in 2007, right before the economic downturn of 2008. Really pleased to say that those 2 stores that we opened within 3 weeks of each other in late 2007 performed exactly as we had planned and expected. And essentially what we did is we went in with a bit of a strategy not to change anything, because if we went in and had changed something in advance, we wouldn't know if we failed because of something we changed or because of something fundamental with our value proposition. And so we kind of went in with that idea and learned. It's sort of you go in and you sort of test it, and you iterate, and you get smarter about it. And that's essentially what we've done over time. And that's essentially what we do in running of our business. It's always about getting better and continuous improvement. And that has served us well. So we have a unique value proposition. I don't think anybody does exactly what we do. Our competitor set, there's lots of competitors, and it's a very competitive environment. But being everyday luxury, which is where we position ourselves strategically in the marketplace, offering a high quality, very well-designed product at an accessible price point, no one does exactly what we do for the breadth of offering that we have. Our customer will have pieces in their closet from other brands, but nobody does exactly what we do. I'm very proud of that. So we just have to make sure we stay in front of that and continue to penetrate the U.S. market right now.
The decision to go into the U.S. itself, I mean, it's interesting that, a lot of American companies come to Canada, and certainly some of our larger companies go into the U.S., but there's a sense that there's so much more Canadian businesses can do to grow, and Canadians want to see more global champions. What advice would you give to other Canadian companies in different sectors and so forth that are thinking about the U.S. but haven't taken the leap?
Know your customer. Really get to know your customer. There are nuances going into the U.S., even though everything seems to be very similar between the countries, but there are nuances. And I would say that's going both ways. Target's an example. They didn't get the Canadian customer. Nordstrom's is another one, exactly. And you would think, why wouldn't they be successful here? But I think it goes both ways. And it's really important to understand and know your customer, which we pride ourselves on doing.
One of the other issues that you hear a lot about these days, I've got 3 daughters who are all in their 20s, and it's this whole work-life balance and, return to the office and all of these things that have taken place. I'm wondering, when you speak to leaders about finding the balance for yourselves as CEOs in very high-pressure careers, how do you, especially as a mom, how have you found you were able to get to that work-life balance?
Well, I will admit it's not always easy. And everyone is different. But for myself, for me, it's all about choices. So at different times, you have to make different choices depending on what's going on in the different dimensions of your life. And I just try to make the right choices and do right by all of the different groups of people, whether it's professional, personal, family. I just try to do right by everyone that's important to me. So at the end of the day, it comes down to choices. I will also have to give a shout out because I have an incredible husband who's very supportive and takes care of a lot of things that I cannot. He's probably better at it too. And so...
did he stay at home when your career was taken off? Or how did you manage that?
Yes, he made the choice to be the CEO of the household, essentially. And
so you report to him at home, I guess.
I do, yes, he's the boss.
I have one of those. Now, I mentioned I have 3 daughters, and I'm not just throwing this at you, but I've been into many stores, Aritzia stores with them and along with my wife. And what I notice, however, is you have 2 sons. And
I do.
They can't shop at your stores, and I know I can't stop at your stores. What are you going to do to rectify the equality of men to also have access to luxury attire?
You say that, but in June of 2021, we acquired a brand called Reigning Champ. And it's for men. And so that was our first entree into the men's category. And
it won't be inside an Aritzia store.
You might not associate it with Aritzia because it's its own separate brand. We run
Where are these stores,
the marketing.
Because I have not heard of it.
Yes, there isn't a store in Calgary, but there is a store in Toronto. There's a store in Vancouver, and they do a great online business. They also have a wholesale business, so you might find them in Nordstrom, Harrods. So
it's a Canadian company.
They're Canadian, yes. They're founded in Vancouver. And their brand is rooted in athletics. So my sons wear Reigning Champ, and they wear the Super Puff.
Now, if you could put the stores side by side in the mall, would be helpful. Because when I was in Aritzia, I'd have to find a sofa to sit down as they all went shopping. But good to know. So there are options for men.
You may find a Reigning Champ pop up very soon.
Great. Well, terrific. I'll look forward to that. Look, before we wrap up, I want to say thank you for doing this. It's been a great conversation. We're going to end up with some on the lighter note, if I can, just some quick rapid fire questions. So if you're ready, here they come.
Sure.
Favorite food?
Potatoes, done any way. I'll eat them anyway.
Favorite type of music?
R&B, hip hop.
What do you do to de-stress?
I've learned most recently breath work, which is sort of a form of meditation.
Favorite place to travel? Cabo
San Lucas.
Is there a favorite city in Canada that you have? I'm guessing it begins with V.
Well, it depends. I can't answer that in a rapid fire. It depends. Some of my favorite cities in the world are New York and Paris, but I was on the chill vibe there. Chilling in Cabo is not bad either.
All right, we've run out of time. Otherwise, I was going to ask you favorite son, but I'm kidding.
Oh.
Thank you so much for doing this, Jennifer. It's been really great to hear your story, and it's inspiring, I think, not just for me, but as a father of daughters, but everything you've talked about is the promise of our country as well, that this is a place where the story like yours can happen. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you for the podcast.
Jennifer Wong is the Chief Executive Officer of Aritzia. If you would like to hear more of our Speaking of Business conversations with innovators, leaders, and entrepreneurs, I encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. Search for Speaking of Business wherever you get your podcasts, or simply go to our website at thebusinesscouncil.ca. Yes, thebusinesscouncil.ca. Until next time, I'm Goldy Hyder. Thanks for joining us.